Am I the a-hole for arguing with a store clerk because they mistook me for a guy? I, 19F, am a cisgender female, but I've always enjoyed dressing in a typically masculine way. I hate wearing anything that emphasizes my body shape and sexualizes my breasts and hips like a lot of women's clothes often do. I don't wear dresses or heels or whatever clothes you'd normally associate with femininity. You get the gist. My go-to outfits usually involve a pair of baggy sweat pants, a plain t-shirt and sneakers. I recently got my hair cut into a pixie though, and now people started mistaking me for a guy wherever I go. It's usually not a big deal. Since I just correct them, they apologize, we laugh it off and move on. Today however, as I was out shopping with my family, my mom walked up to a store clerk to ask her where the changing rooms were. The store clerk asks for you, or for the young man, and I immediately tell her I'm actually a girl. She shrugs it off, points us to the nearest changing room and goes, well, he can change in there then. And I correct her again. I thought okay, maybe she didn't hear me at first, but she looked at me and said okay this time, so she definitely heard me. After we're done, we go pay for our clothes and the same store clerk says something along the lines of that'll be $30 for you, and $65 for the boy, $95 in total. This is when I flipped my shit and told her, in a not so polite of a way, that I was a girl, and she was extremely rude for continuing to call me otherwise. She rolled her eyes and argued back that if I look and act like a guy, I can't expect people to refer to me as a female. This went on for a few more minutes before me and my mom eventually left the store. I don't feel like I was wrong to get angry. I don't mind it when people misgender me by mistake and correct themselves after I tell them I'm a girl, but I feel like this woman did it to piss me off on purpose. Am I the a-hole? Now let's read some comments. Not the a-hole. Reporter. She's either reading you as a trans woman and being dogmatically transphobic, or just being deliberately contrary and combative because you dared correct her, both of which are deserving of reprisal. 100%. This bigot thought she was humiliating a trans woman when she was, in actuality, harassing another cis woman. Which means she was so thirsty for the opportunity to humiliate a trans woman she couldn't even wait until she actually encountered one. What a small hateful person. I know, right? How dare a woman wear her hair short and dress less feminine? Isn't it the exact opposite? The store clerk thought a person who wears men's clothes must be a man. A person wears women's clothes must be a woman. Or did you mean the store clerk thought Op was a trans man? It looks to me like the store clerk is sexist, not transphobic. Can people who downvote this explain why a store clerk would think a person with short hair and men's clothes is male to female transgender? It doesn't make any sense to me. It looks like classic sexism, where women have to wear women's clothes and men have to wear men's clothes, where people aren't allowed to be gender non-conforming. I was a tomboy in the 80s, before many transgender youths even existed. I was straight, just hated wearing chick clothing. Still do. The closest to feminine is my athletic wear for working out. I used to get the same shiz up and almost guaranteed that our store clerk was simply trying to piss her off. I rock a pixie too, up, and I'm 44. Oh, and not the a-hole. This, you should definitely report her. Glad the top post is calling this out. This is definitely misdirected transphobia. I wouldn't necessarily call myself cis. It's complicated, but I'm a butch lesbian and have been subject to transphobia from people thinking I'm FTM or MTF according to what space I'm in. Other than just being rank, it's one reason I think trans exclusionary lesbians are so out of their good. We have way more in common than trans women than we do your average cis straight women. Transphobia was my immediate thought, not the a-hole. My thinking was she thought you were trans, and if she acts that way towards a customer who's not even trans, think about how she acts towards actual trans people. Idaho 100% report this. Also, report her the right way. Check out the store's website and get the contact details for their hour department and go through them. When I worked in fashion retail and got a pixie crop, you wouldn't believe the amount of times I got snide looks and comments from customers. Some people are just backwards as duck. Or option 3, performing the societal pressure to conform to femininity that we always talk about, but in a much more explicit way than usual. Am I the a-hole for being upset and correcting someone who is willingly calling me the wrong gender after I've told them otherwise 2 times already? Gee, kind of hard to make heads or tails of this. /s. I'm a trans woman and a full-time professional, Patreon-funded, trans civil rights activist. This carrot is the correct answer. Please report her, for trans people everywhere, and because you were harassed for your gender expression too. If someone mistakes you for another gender, that's no big deal. What is a big deal is to treat you like this after you've mentioned it. Making the mistake, easy. Continuing to misgender someone, not acceptable. Not the a-hole. Yup. I dress very unisex and have an alto voice, so when I had short hair, I was mistaken for a dude all the time. Sometimes I corrected people, never once had an argument. I've had long hair for many years now, so it doesn't happen anymore, but I wonder if it would happen these days with all these transphobic bigots walking around. Not the a-hole. I've worked in retail for years and the clerk is an absolute A. I've made the same mistake myself, but I immediately apologized for it. Definitely reported to the company though. It might help another person not have the same situation happen. I'm a bearded dude with very long hair. I think it's funny when waiters call me ma'am when approaching from behind me. However, if one kept insisting on it, man, I would be livid. Not the a-hole, and maybe consider getting this employee written up. Not the a-hole. There's a great quote by Ian Fleming, of James Bond fame. Once is a instance. Twice is coincidence. The third time it's enemy action. It seems like you did well overall to avoid a confrontation with this clerk until it reached a flashpoint. It's great that you're understanding of being accidentally misgendered and seem to be able to politely correct their misperception. Similarly, it's excellent that you gave the clerk the benefit of the doubt as to whether they misheard you. Your narrative establishes that this clerk has some annoying hang up about gender and individual sartorial choices. Regardless, it seems like you were within your rights to call this clerk out on her malarkey and that you did a solid job keeping your cool during the lead up to the confrontation. Why is am I the a-hole full of these tales that, unless the op is altering the facts or chopping out important pieces of information, are entirely black and white? Of course you're not the a-hole. The shop assistant shouldn't be commenting on your appearance at all, and I don't know why you needed to ask Reddit for confirmation. Edit. Spelling. Honestly, because we are often taught in the US, I was raised in the Midwest and the South, to be polite and not make waves. So we feel some bizarre guilt at times when we do make waves even if it's justified. And still others will guilt us for it by saying we were wrong and create justification for bad behavior and placing blame on us. People are not taught to stand their ground in an appropriate manner. And sometimes people just need to know if their anger is justified because they aren't understood by the other people who were present. Sure, not the a-hole stories usually generate more upvotes and the reactions are more civil. But that's mainly because many people don't seem to get the idea of this sub. I think there's nothing wrong with seeking support when you're already 80% sure you're not the a-hole, though I understand that it may be annoying for some. Most of these stories are hyperbolic at best. I just struggle to believe so many of them. Because when everyone around you is telling you that you're wrong, it makes you feel crazy. You might know that you did something right or were justified in doing it, but if all your friends tell you that you're wrong, you'll start questioning yourself. It's because such people do exist, and there are a lot of them, and at times they try to gaslight you into thinking you are the problem. Like that man that chased a boy around and harassing him for wearing a dress. The store clerk for continuing to call you a boy, but you for your statement how feminine clothes sexualize a woman's breasts and hips. Being feminine and being sexual are two very different things, and that mentality that wearing clothes that don't hide boobs and hips are sexual or turn a woman in a sexual object is misogynistic and sexist. Just as you want to be able to wear what you want without being judged, you also shouldn't judge women who like to dress feminine. I don't think she was judging, I think she was just referencing how she felt in that type of clothing. In high school I did the exact same thing for several years. I felt like I was sexualized/objectified way more often If I wore anything even vaguely feminine, even stereotypically modest feminine clothing, not form-fitting, because men would harass me or make comments to slash about me. I hated the idea that men were viewing me sexually without my consent, and it made me feel repulsed and uncomfortable, so in response I started dressing as much like a boy as possible, because in my experience, being perceived as a girl equals sexualized, no matter what. I cut off all my hair, shopped in the men's section, stopped wearing anything that read feminine, etc. This was a way I tried to control how I was being perceived. I was more comfortable dealing with sexism in the gender roles genre than in the sexual harassment genre. I had no problem with girls who dressed in feminine or form-fitting clothes, nor did I think that clothing was actually sexual. I knew it was gross men who were the real problem, but this was the only way I could take any control back from that situation. Just being perceived as feminine was reason enough for objectification. Dressing masculine reduced the amount of men who would make the choice to sexualize me. So when I read Op's description, it just sounds like she is uncomfortable with the idea of being sexualized, and the reality is other people will sexualize her more in femme/form-fitting clothes. It isn't that she's hating on other women that wear these clothes, just explaining why she chooses not to. She was talking about herself. Exclamation mark. She is saying she is rejecting social norms or ideas at how a woman should dress. Nowhere does she implies in her statement all women should, or judge others for it. Seems like you are the one who is judging. She clearly was talking about clothes that sexualize her body. She isn't judging what other people wear. That wasn't the point they were trying to make at all, and I feel like you are looking for an argument by trying to focus on a few words rather than the intended context. Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell for more videos. Also like the video if you enjoy it.